Hi, let's talk about meat today. And I think this is a great conversation. First of all, let's start with the fact that I think most people are healthier eating meat. And that is a completely different topic, and I have some reasons for that. And maybe that'll be another topic that we discuss. But so much attention is given to the quantity of food that we consume. We count calories, we look at macros, so much percent of your calories should come from proteins, from fats, from carbohydrates. And I think those are great conversations to have, but maybe another question is, what about the quality of the foods you eat? And I think in the meat and dairy, if you're consuming dairy, that is a huge topic that we need to dive into a little bit. So let's talk about that. When you look at meat products, I group them into, I have two thoughts on this. You have conventionally raised products, and then you have ones that are organic, pasture raised, grass fed, humanely raised. And those terms are kind of synonymous, but it just basically means that the animals were raised the way they were meant to be raised. You have cows that are feeding on pasture land and they have some space to roam around. You have chickens that are out looking for grasshoppers to eat and bugs to eat. And these animals aren't just caged up in these tiny little stalls and never allowed to leave. Unfortunately, what happens when that is true is those conditions are dirty, and so they're prone to infection and illness, so they have to put antibiotics in their feed. And that's just not the way the animal was meant to be raised. And then you look at the constitution of the animal completely changes. If it's out and it's eating grass and it's mobile and it's getting fresh air and all these things, beef is a source of omega-3 versus if it's stuffed in this stall being pumped full of feed that is genetically modified, contains a lot of grains that are high in omega-6s versus omega-3s. You have a completely different food. And I see that when I test people's nutrient profiles and fatty acid profiles as well, because they have really high levels of something called arachidonic acid, and I know they're probably eating a lot of conventional meat versus omega-3s. Those people that are eating foods like that have a much healthier omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, generally speaking. So anyway, that's something that I always recommend, is that we transition from those conventional meats to pastured, grass-fed and organic sources. Chicken would be another thing it's important to get in a pasture-raised, humanely raised fashion, and that includes eggs as well. So if you take an egg that's conventional, you'll see the yolk might be like a pale yellow, but if you go get one from a farm, you'll see the yolks are this beautiful golden color, and that's because the animals are eating grasshoppers and bugs and sources of protein that make the egg a better quality for us. So there's that. And then let's talk about pork for a minute. There is some discussion as to whether or not we should eat pork, and that is due to the fact that the animal has a different digestive system than something like a chicken or a cow with beef. So, pigs, their digestion is different, and they don't sweat, so they don't eliminate toxins the same way. They don't chew their cud. There's all these reasons why pork is sometimes nixed from the list of foods that someone should consume if they want to be truly healthy. And then there's some religious, like in the Judeo-Christian worldview, there's some thought that the Bible speaks against that. And so I think, I can appreciate both sides of that, that coin. I think ideally, if we didn't eat pork, it would probably be better. But, that being said, if you are going to consume pork, I would for sure want to know that it was coming from a reputable source that was feeding the animal clean food, if you will, not just all kinds of nasty leftovers, and raising it humanely. And so, I think that discussion is beyond the scope of this video, but if you are going to consume poultry or pork, then I think that is the question, is what is the quality of that pork, and that is really important. So those are just my thoughts on meat. And dairy would fall under the same kind of category as the cows and the beef. If you are looking at a dairy cow and it's not being raised right, and it's getting a lot of the feed with grains in it, and hormones, growth hormones that make it produce more milk, and steroids, again, that make it produce more milk, and you can get more milk out of this cow, or antibiotics because it's crammed in these horrible, inhumane conditions, then that translates into the quality of the milk and the cheese and the yogurt you're going to consume. So it's not all that uncommon for me to recommend that my clients go dairy free, because we're usually working with some issues where that is just how they're going to get to their health goals better, is eliminating dairy. But if that's not an issue for you and you are consuming dairy, again, I think talking about the quality of what we're consuming is just a huge issue. So I hope those thoughts help you. I think if you are listening to this and you're completely overwhelmed by the fact that, oh my gosh, I have to totally change everything I'm doing, pick one thing and transition it, and then transition the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, you've taken a big issue and you've made it manageable. So for example, take breakfast and replace your conventional eggs with organic eggs. And if you're eating any kind of breakfast meats, transition those. And then once that's not an issue, move on to lunch, or chicken or beef, or do it one thing at a time. Another strategy that works well for some people is to say, okay, I have 5 pounds of chicken in my refrigerator or my freezer or wherever it is. What am I going to do with it? Well, use it, and then tell yourself, okay, my plan is to replace this conventional meat with a higher quality meat as soon as it's time to do that replacement. So again, that'll help you from being overwhelmed and turning this into like something that is so overwhelming you're not going to accomplish it. So those are my thoughts on the meat you eat and how it affects your health. I hope you found that helpful.